Welcome to Ignite Intimacy, a podcast exploring intimacy, romantic relationships, sexuality, and everything that relates to these hot topics. We're going in. Are you ready? This is your host, Laura Aisha. Let's do this. Hello, Ignite Intimacy community. This is your host, Miss Laura Aisha, and I am thrilled to be here today with a woman that I've been trying to connect with for quite some time, and we very synchronistically and magically crossed paths at Burning Man this year, which was awesome. So I said, podcast, let's do this. and so Coach Yari is on the line with us from California. What is going on, Coach Yari? How are you?
Oh man, thank you so much. It was really magical when I saw you at Burning Man, for sure. I'm really just excited to be here, and I'm just excited to share perspective and whatever it is that I can do to support anybody, in their life. That's my wish, is to have people tap into their fullest potential. And that's my favorite thing.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, so that was sweet. I had been out and about that morning. I woke up for sunrise and I had been out and about just kind of on my own, cruising around, and had all sorts of really cool, magical things happen. And then I just returned to my camp, and I was ready for a nap, and some of the ladies I was camping with said, "Oh, we just got vegan ice cream, right up on the Esplanade, at this spot. I forget, it was a Pink Palace or something like that." and I thought to myself, yeah, I'm going to go get some vegan ice cream before I lay down. And so I literally step into line, and I see Dr. Kat, who it was a guest on a previous Ignite Intimacy episode. That's a great conversation too, y'all. Dr. Kat, I'm just going to see if I can find quickly there it is. 82, episode number 82, The Body, Jealousy, and Playfulness with Dr. Kat Meyer. So I saw Dr. Kat. Dr. Kat and I had never met in person, and I knew her immediately. I was like, "Oh, I know exactly who you are." I was like, "Kat?" And she's like, "Laura, oh my gosh." And so then my friend Megan walks up, and she's with Dr. Kat. And then Yari walks up, and then their other girlfriend. And so we all just had this magical synchronistic goddess meetup at Burning Man, which was certainly a highlight.
For sure. And oh my gosh, if you haven't heard Dr. Kat speak, please go do that. She's one of my really good friends, and she's such an expert. Wow. I'm glad that you interviewed her too. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. She's super cool. Definitely someone I want to get to know more. And so what we're going to be diving into today, at least to get us started here, these conversations tend to take on a life of their own, which is cool. And we always hold the intention that whatever is needed to be received by our audience comes through us with ease, grace, and clarity and power, right? So what immediately inspired me about connecting with you is your Unleash movement. So we're going to be talking about weight, shifting the perception on weight and what weight is, because we think about weight often as physical weight. So we'll be redefining weight and then unleashing yourself and being authentic. And you can actually create with that in your life, and especially in your love life and your sex life. And then also, drawing lines to connect more with others and choosing things that allow us to have a better insight into maybe people, places, things that we've judged in the past, and whatever other magic and amazingness comes through this conversation today. So that just gives you a little insight into what Coach Yari and I are going to be exploring on this conversation. So I'd love for you to just give us some insight into your life and where did this Unleash movement, what are the seedlings that were planted and when for this Unleash movement, Yari, just in your own life? How old were you? Where did this really get started? What was the impetus to saying yes to a fully unleashed and an authentic life?
So I'm going to start off with just stating that what I came to do in this lifetime is to be fully free. And I couldn't have understood what that was or have the desire even of what that was if I if I didn't feel imprisoned throughout my life. And, as a kid, I was bullied. And I'm from Puerto Rico originally, and I was born there. I lived there until the age of 7. And fortunately, I was able to experience a lot of joy and magic and just beauty and, kindness and a lot of love up until about that age. And then, of course, there's also the dynamics of the parents and divorce, since I was, since I was born, really. And so that, of course, affects your trajectory, and it certainly affected mine. But when I came to the United States, I began to get bullied. And, from the ages about 8 through 12 is up until the time that I remember, being bullied. And I lived in Tennessee. And so I was very different and I didn't quite fit in. Here's this Puerto Rican little girl, coming into a culture that doesn't exactly understand certain things about the Puerto Rican culture. Very touchy-feely. We make a lot of eye contact. We're very expressive in that way. And, I had to basically tone myself down in the expression of who I was. And, from the racism to the being called ugly all the time, I remember asking boys out because I was such a little firecracker, and I would ask boys out on a little note. And I don't know if you did this, but you have a checkbox of yes or no. And every time they would check no. so I was rejected quite a lot. And so what that did for me is it put me into a space of a lot of darkness and a lot of sadness, because I then started to question, who it is that I am, and not fitting in. I certainly then all I wanted to do was fit in. And so I started to do everything in my power and kind of start copying other people and what they were doing, but that wasn't, really working. And so,
so it's almost like you started to self-abandon, thinking, well, maybe if I'm more like that, I'll be more XYZ, lovable, accepted, desired, worthy. Yeah.
All the things, enough, and I think that this is a core thing that happens for the most part for across the board. We have these core wounds of not being enough, not being worthy. Those are two of the main ones, not being loved. And in whatever form that takes place, I feel like they're there so that we can experience the pain enough inside of that to then wake ourselves up and save ourselves, because we're the only ones that can actually save ourselves. We have other people in our journey who are certain catalysts, if you will, that begin unlocking our magic. And whether those people are there to give us so much rejection and so much, being standoffish and pushing away and creating more pain in our lives, for us to recognize and stand up for ourselves that we don't deserve that we're worthy enough to not accept that, or people that are really joyous and loving and wonderful, that you're like, oh, wow, I love this person. I want to be more like that. So either way, you're being guided back to that space of who you were when you were a child, when you were in your element and moment to moment being so present with just the joy and excitement of life itself, and without the judgments, without the limitations, without those constructs that have been decided upon by society of what's right, what's wrong, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. And so it wasn't for me until about the age of 19 years old that I was like, okay, I'm going to work on my body, and I'm going to create this body. So I entered myself into a fitness competition. I was thinking to myself, when I get this body, I'm going to prove to the world that I'm worthy, even though that's not the language that I was using, in the thoughts of that. but it was like, oh, I'm going to prove it to the world, and then I'll be happy when I get this body, because I also wanted to be loved and accepted by men. And, since there's also the abandonment piece from the dad. And so in creating the body, I figured, well, then I could be loved then, and that void would be filled. And so a lot of it revolved around sexuality and sex. And so if I had the body, that would make men love me, and then I would be worthy. So that was a big piece, to doing that. And then I also, in creating this body, there was also the disconnect that happens, because now you are dependent on this external factor of this body that you have to create the happiness. So anytime I would go off of the diet or the not working out, I would feel miserable. And then I would go back to it. And it was this yo-yo cycle, and it's this endless, just exhausting place to be in.
Yeah.
And, I think that...
Because you're not dealing with what's at the core of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Of course, you're just externalizing it, thinking like, oh, I'm going to keep going in this hamster wheel, hoping that this will, resolve itself. But it's until you feel like, well, this isn't working, and you feel that deep suffering and pain, that you then begin to question more inside of yourself, and you start to try and find God, truly, like the movie, like back in the day, Eat, Pray, Love. I think when I saw it, it hit home for me, because it was certainly something that I had felt. It was this feeling that I wanted to really connect with something deeper that would allow me to really live my life from a place of pure, authentic, and genuine happiness, not being dependent on anything outside of me to fill my void. Not the men, not the body, not the house, not the money, not the everything else that we place of importance, so that we can feel worthy. I wanted to know what it was like to truly be content, fulfilled, and free within myself. So
amazing.
This is where, the journey of the fitness took me. And then that was very structured. And I started to break through that, created the SoulBody Method, which was a much better way, more aligned way of coming into a space of freedom within the self, and in creating lightness within yourself. Then you create the body, and it manifests much more naturally and effortlessly than having to work really hard for it, which then led to finally being like Burning Man last year, and it hitting home for me, because I was suppressing or repressing this part of me, that there's this part that I really wanted to dance. But I was like, but how would I do this? Or like, I've never taken choreography in my life. I've never been good at it. That's why I haven't taken it. And I felt so insecure around it. And there's a part of me that wanted to somehow bring dance into the fitness and what I do, but I was so scared. And I had to break free within myself. And it wasn't until last year, 2017, that finally, at the age of 35, I just couldn't take it anymore of being partial, of being not fully self-expressed. And I just started dancing like no one was watching, truly placing myself and not giving a care, not thinking, oh my God, what are people going to think of me? Am I being too sexy? How are people going to now view me if I do it in this way? Are they going to still think that I'm, this identity that I've created, this kind Yadi, the Yadi that's a coach, the Yadi that, whatever identity we tend to place on ourselves, and then to break out of the identity. I don't want to feel any attachment to any one thing any longer. I just want to be present in all of who I am. And that's what I wish for other people. And I was like, wow, when people started to see me dance, they were like, wow, are you a professional dancer? Are you, and those were the questions that I started to receive. And then I just was like, I'm just going to create this thing. I'm just going to like bring people together and like have them just dance. And then, I brought 10 women together after Burning Man last year. And I just was like, okay, I'm going to just bring them to my house and have them dance. And in 3 days, like 10 women showed up, and it was very cathartic. And these women like really released so much that they were able to tap into their fullest joy and expression and feel so sexy and so alive and woken up that sensual part of themselves and the playful part and the weird parts and the whatever parts that we tend to hide, because we're always constantly judging ourselves based on what society has conditioned us to be like.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
yeah, it's been a beautiful journey. My gosh, like wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's like, for me, just listening to your story and hearing about all the different phases, right? And how it started very young and, this experience of rejection around boys. And then, well, maybe if I have the perfect body, and then, just noticing that like that actually wasn't the key. That wasn't the key to your happiness and joy and just living a pleasureful experience here. And, just like all the different steps and stages, right? And
100%.
yeah. And so it's amazing. And then you think about like, I think about myself and how much I've, thought that, well, maybe this is the thing and maybe that is the thing. And how do I prove my worth? Right. And there is no proving your worth. It's like, and I'm saying this to myself as I'm speaking it out loud, like there is no proving your worth. It's that knowing I am inherently worthy.
Inherently.
And yeah, and like that we have worth, period. And not because we earned all these degrees or we make this much money or we have this partner in our life or we own this thing. It doesn't have anything to do with any of that.
Absolutely.
And so there are constructs in our human societies and communities that have led us to believe that you have more worth if you have this, or if you look like that, or if you've accomplished that. And it's not true. It's false. It's a story. And so for each of us, just peeling back the layers of that and just like, tapping this in directly to love and romance and intimacy. And when we start to get into relations with other people and you start to allow yourself to open up a little bit, or maybe you're aware that you don't open up and you keep having this same experience or, whatever it is on your journey, it's like, talk to us a bit about how creating this unleashed movement and choosing to be authentically who you are has opened things up for you in the areas of love and romance, intimacy, dating, in that whole world.
Yeah. So, Unleash was really a surrender and a letting go of, whatever I had already created as a career, being in the industry of fitness and health and creating a name for myself and including, doing 2 television shows, one for MTV and one for TLC. And that revolved around, helping people transform their bodies and lose weight. And, how do I go from that to being fully self-expressed and dancing the way into the world and creating this beautiful experience where what I've gotten out of life more than anything is that there's a few things in this particular human experience that open us up to the beauty and magic that we truly are, like deep inside. And that is movement, music, voice activation, and dance. Why are those things, and breath, why are those things the things that open us up the most? It's because music, movement, voice activation, dance, and breath all get us embodied. All bring us back to the body, which takes us away from the mind. And the mind is what creates all of these limiting beliefs based on whatever wounding you've experienced throughout your life growing up. And so the keys that help you access your heart and your spirit and remembering who you truly are authentically is through those things that literally your body is the gateway back into the spirit. And so Unleash taps into all of those things at one time. And when people get to experience themselves in just an environment that feels super safe, feels playful and childlike, just to dance for the expression of dancing, not like when you go out perhaps into a club or a certain setting that you're being objectified and therefore you don't feel safe to express because of the way that society has been conditioned. This truly has allowed, it's a space and a place that has allowed for people to truly tap into who they are. And what that does is when they're back into their body, when you're back into your spirit, you then can tap into all the ideas and possibilities of what your dream actually is, because you're bringing down the walls of the shoulds and shouldn'ts, of the appropriate and the inappropriate, of what you were told that you need to go do to be accomplished or to feel worthy, and you believed it somewhere along the way. It literally brings you back to the state of joy and play and authentic freedom that exists within you. And for me, as I've been doing Unleash, not just has the magic continued to unfold for me when I stepped and took that leap of faith and faced a fear, because it was fearful to step into a place of the unknown, but at the same time, it was my highest excitement. And for me, it's like what I share with people all the time is like, when it scares you and excites you, you go do it. You go do it every time that it scares you and excites you, because that is exactly where your edge is, that's going to take you to the other side where the grass is absolutely greener. And the magic that you get to experience of yourself because you're living your dream, believe me, you're going to cry a lot, but you're going to cry of so much happiness that you're like, oh my God, should I pinch myself? Like, I'm actually living this dream. And then on a personal level for me, in a way of intimacy and in a way of even like just knowing who I am, I'm not dependent like I used to be when I was younger, getting men to validate my self-worth. It's been a journey of, wow, I'm feeling so good within myself. I honestly don't need anything to complete me. And yes, this is a human experience where we get to co-create and collaborate with other human beings, and we're all here as reflections of one another, and it's super fun. But to not need it, but instead to feel like, oh yeah, that feels really good to be around, wonderful, but to not attach myself to it as if it's going to create my personal happiness and completion. That is one amazing space to be in, that I've gotten to see myself so intimately and gone to those places that I can feel so comfortable not being with anyone, or how fun it is to be with somebody that I get to transparently express with. Now I feel like, come from a place of not doing things or manipulating certain actions to get certain responses, but rather I'm just authentically being myself. And so it's liberated me into all of my relationships, not just relationships with men, but relationships that I have with people, because I'm coming from a place of, I don't need to get anything from you. I'm here and I'm joyful. And I hope that I can spark, that place in you that empowers you and brings you into that state of alignment and power that you need nothing else outside of you to complete you. And that is my highest joy. And now it's funny, recently, at Burning Man, oh my gosh, like so many men showed up in my life, and conscious men too, like men that I felt so in alignment with. And that's just, they're showing up because they're being a reflection of who I'm being. And those are the people that I get to witness in my life now. And also in other relationships, the people that I get to witness in my life are really creative, magical, inspired entrepreneurs who are stepping outside of the constructs and the boxes as a reflection of who I'm being. So, like Gandhi said, be the change that you wish to see in the world. When you are who you are, you get to experience that world and you tune into that channel that absolutely does exist. So my gosh, like I feel so blessed truly in my life, and to be creating this space for people is like, there's nothing else in the world that I wish to be doing except for this, to be quite honest.
And well, so in the work that you do, like with Unleash, how have you witnessed other people's transformation?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? Let's talk about, since Dr. Kat Meyer, she was on your podcast. Well, she's a good friend of mine, like I said, and she's been a therapist, sex therapist for a long time. So she's attended 3 of my unleashes, and there's been 6 of them. And in her world, there were some thoughts, and she talks about it all the time, like in her postings that she has, and she'll be very transparent in what's going on in her life. And she basically at some point has been scared to post certain pictures, perhaps because she has an identity of being a therapist, for instance. And how are people going to view her if she posts something that is out of the norm of what a therapist should be posting, or any kind of pictures of herself, or any kind of projects that would really put her on the edge of what she thinks society is going to think of her, right? Because these are things that are being created within herself. And so as she's come to the Unleashes, she has been so inspired by me being in my element that I created this thing where people come and experience a 4-hour immersion of a world, and created such a frequency that I had 105 people twerking on the floor, normalizing the shit out of twerking so that you don't have a judgment around it. And like, it was the most fun thing in the world to just witness and be there for. But anyway, so she was so inspired by just coming to these Unleashes that she's been having this idea for a long time of creating a sensual yoga in underwear. And
Amazing.
and she just created this project called Undone because of coming to Unleash, because she has experienced the beingness of being in the frequency of owning who you are. And now she's creating this project where she loves doing yoga and pleasure, because that's her jam. She's so good at having people understand pleasure, and she gets to do both of those things in one place that she had like sort of let go of a little bit, going more into the cognitive therapy part. And so she was brought back to remembering who she was. So I bring that example up because she is now living her truest magic that she came to do here for people in the world.
That's amazing.
And that's just one example. There's another girl who came that she was celibate for a year. And the day that she came to Unleash, she got asked out by 7 men. 7.
Wow.
Not 1, but 7. And she just like had no, like she hadn't dated, nothing, and being celibate, and all of a sudden comes to Unleash and unlocks the beauty and magic of herself, because all the walls came down. And I mean, another example, I mean, there's this woman came from Wisconsin. She flew in to come to Unleash from Wisconsin. And now she's certifying herself as a Kundalini yoga teacher when she was a math teacher. And she's going to bring Kundalini yoga back to Wisconsin. And she also flew back from Wisconsin for a second Unleash just for one day. And she came back home with this new experience for herself where she was going through a certain separation in her marriage, and they were, not so amicable. And from coming back from Unleash, she was able to have such a level of connection with her husband that now they're in an amicable state of being after like 3 years of constant fights. And like, it was such a surrender that got to happen from Unleash, because Unleash, what all it is, it's be. That's it. When you unleash, you just are.
Yeah. It's like, be you, be
you.
Yeah. And there's such freedom that can come from that. And it's like, I just think about when I, put on music and allow myself to just like move and dance and, however I want to. And granted, it might be in the comfort of my own home. It might be in a club or at a concert or Burning Man, wherever it is. It's like the more that I am opening myself up and moving my body, like you said, that movement, music, voice, breath, dance, it's like things start to get ignited within you. And, all of a sudden it's like things are moving. Life starts moving around you. And so letting go of like the constraints and just giving ourselves permission to be fully expressed is a gift that we all need, that actually the world needs.
100%.
Yeah, so creating that freedom and that expression and that beauty and that sensuality and connection. And so I'm just curious, like you had shared something with me before we pressed record today, and it was something that allowed you to let go of your judgment around gender, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share a little bit more about that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been married and I've been divorced, and I feel like, during that time when I was with this person, I was ignoring a lot of the signs. I was very much so in my head about, oh, he's my dream man. I wrote out 62 qualities. He has 61. So I wasn't tuning into the present moment of our actual relationship experience. And I was so focused on the characteristics and the things that he had. And that created a very superficial sort of relationship. And I was very unhappy to the point that my spirit was like feeling dead inside. And it so happened that at the very like almost end part of our, like I could feel it coming, like that it was about to end, but I was so scared to release this man that I had so identified with as being my dream man or life partner or whatnot. And I created a retreat called the Soul Discovery Retreat. And it ended up happening because I had a dream with dolphins. I went to Hawaii and swam with the dolphins, and that led me to then going back to Hawaii, creating this retreat in which I had met this woman who was really strange for me because she activated sort of like this attraction. And I was just like, oh no, that's, like that's weird. And I sort of put it to the back of my mind in the first time that I went to Hawaii, and also connected with her, and we connected through Instagram or whatnot. And I didn't think much of it. On the return back to Hawaii, creating this retreat, she actually became part of the retreat. And so there was, again, when I saw her, there was this crazy attraction that I couldn't almost dismiss at this point. And when I went to Hawaii at that time, I had said to my husband at the time, I said, I really want us to go to therapy or coaching because I can't continue to do this and live in this way, where I don't feel fulfilled. And not that he was a bad man. He was a super kind-hearted being, all the things. But I knew, like, I just felt so bored. I was passionless. I wouldn't even get wet. And he was a hot man, and I couldn't even go there with him because our level of intimacy and our connection was so off. And I had asked him for about 2 years to go into coaching with me. And he was like, oh, we'll figure it out ourselves. And then this last time before going to Hawaii, I said, please, let's do this when I come back. And he's like, I don't know, we'll think about it. And I think in his response, it triggered something in me that I was like, it was like a light switch. I'm like, oh, this relationship is done. Like, I cannot continue to do this. And so when I went to Hawaii and this woman was there, she activated this level of passion and this sort of joy. And it was just like, oh my gosh, what is this? And it became a catalyst for me to let go of the relationship that I was in. And again, no judgment for, myself in the fact that, like before, that would have absolutely been a judgment of like, oh I'm cheating on my husband. And I think that when this was happening, it was more like I have to, for myself, I have to choose whatever I'm feeling in this moment because I need to understand what this is. So I choose love because for so long, I was not choosing myself. I was choosing to not love myself. I was choosing fear consistently. I was with this man because of fear of not finding somebody else that met, those qualities or not, or creating this dream man that I put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And so from a place of fear, I stayed in the relationship, which continued to bury me deeper and deeper into a darkness that all systems were kind of shut off inside of me. And, thankfully, all these wonderful things start to happen in our lives that we have to listen to. Like the dream that I had of swimming with the dolphins led me to Hawaii, led me to this woman, led me to whatever. And I experienced this. And what it allowed me to be in being in the space with a woman was to see somebody also as just a human being, that there's energy that attracts. And I let go of the identity of it being male or female and just allowed for that to occur, and really just understanding an attraction from a point of energy and not it being even gender based. And by me being in the space of knowing what that's like, which we later entered into a relationship 9 months later, she came back into my life somehow. And we entered into the space of being in a 3-month relationship. It really allowed for me to understand women overall on such a deeper level. And I believe that because of that relationship that I experienced, I have such beautiful relationships with women because there is no form of competition for me. There's it's just pure celebration of women and collaboration more than anything else. And I want to celebrate all human beings and who they are authentically and not have any judgment for whatever they choose in their personal happiness. And in that, when we don't have judgment, we become free. We're not caged up. We're not suffering inside. And allowing that also allowed me to know that in my life, I actually need a certain level of polarity, that I desire to be fully in my feminine. And I find that more with a man than I do with a woman. But it was beautiful to experience, to open that space up for me and explore what that was and not judge it. I think that in not judging it, you really then come into such a free and authentic state of being, which allows you to be fully in your power, not having anybody else's truth, but your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like when I think about all the limitations I've put on myself because of whatever, my own self-judgments, other people's judgments. And I came really straight and really clean about something on Saturday evening. And it was like I had a desire. I wondered why I still haven't done anything about this desire that I have. And then I just put it out there. I was just really straight with someone about it. And it was so freeing and amazing and powerful. And then and then I'm with my word, being my word and speaking it into existence,
Mm-hmm.
So Yadi, this has been an awesome conversation, just transformative journey of being a human being on planet Earth, opening up, unleashing yourself, getting up underneath your power and your worth and saying yes to that which is calling you forward. So thank you so much for sharing your beauty and your truth and your energy with our audience. How can people find you online?
Cool. Thank you so much for this. So people can find me online on Instagram at Coach Yari, and that's Coach Yari, and also Unleash Movement. So Unleash without an ED, Unleash movement altogether. And that's to find the experiences which actually are definitely going to go off into the world. They're going to go beyond LA for sure, as I feel, this is a revolutionary movement that is going to spark up people's lives and have them be who they are. And I truly believe that with all of my heart and soul. So yeah,
Amazing.
That's the best way to find me. Facebook Great. As well. So Coach Yari.
Okay.
Find me there.
So both Instagram and Facebook, Coach Yari, and then at Unleash Movement on Instagram.
Yeah, totally. And then my website also, if you guys want to check it out for more on the body piece, is if you go into the SoulBodyMethod.com, you're going to find a lot of beautiful information and insight, to help release any weight, weight is anything that's holding you back, and weight loss is freeing yourself from what's holding you back. So that will occur naturally in the body when you align yourself. And so if you go to the SoulBodyMethod.com, you can find amazing info in there. So happy to help and bring that information out into the world.
Great. Okay, cool. So you heard it here. Instagram, it's Coach Yari, and that is Coach, COACH, Yari, YARI, or at Unleash Movement. That's both on Instagram, and then Coach Yari on Facebook, the SoulBodyMethod.com. And stay tuned for Yari's upcoming Unleash events in LA and elsewhere. Many, many blessings to you, Coach Yari. So grateful we had this time together today. Ignite Intimacy community, we love you. Thank you so much. If you have questions, comments, you want to connect with Coach Yari and you just don't feel like checking her out on social media, email us hello@igniteintimacy.com. However, we highly recommend you go check out her Instagram and her Facebook, because it is full of power and light, and you're going to get some good juicy energy just from peeping what she's up to. So yeah, we love you all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being with us. Stay blessed. And until the next time, ciao for now.
Thanks for tuning in to another conversation on the Ignite Intimacy podcast hotline. We love that you choose to spend your time with us. Check us out at igniteintimacy.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating. It helps more people know about us. We love to hear from you. You can email us with questions, comments, or suggestions to hello@igniteintimacy.com. And tell your friends. Music was arranged by Jason Pfaff and Mike Corey. And this podcast is produced by yours truly, Laura Aisha. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, let your light shine bright and ignite your intimacy.